Okay, let's jump in. So today, as I said, we are making breakfast for dinner. I was going to wear pajamas, but then I thought that'd be a little hokey. And I don't know if my pajamas are necessarily appropriate to cook in on Facebook Live. So I'm going to wear the standard chef coat. We're going to make, first and foremost, we're going to make a salad dressing for our salad. It's going to be very simple. Hello, Wendy. The heat wave, I've been in AC all day. I haven't even noticed. Okay, so today we're going to make eggs Benedict. We're going to make the hollandaise from scratch. But first we're going to make our salad dressing, get that out of the way. The salad's going to be very simple. It's going to be mixed greens with some celery, that's what that's called. Some celery, some carrot, and the dressing. This is, when I worked in Montreal, this is a dish that we would serve at our brunch menus. Pretty much every breakfast item in Quebec, it's a salad with it, just a very simple green salad. It's healthy, it's delicious, it's easy. So we're going to do that. Donna says Facebook is freezing on her. If it's freezing on anybody else, let me know and I'll kind of reset my modem or whatever if I have to. Yeah, so this dish is something that I would have eaten when I was working in Montreal. I have gluten-free, multi-grain English muffins. It's all I could find. I haven't tried these. I don't know how they're going to be. If I'm being honest, they don't look super appetizing. I'm hoping that you have really nice, fluffy English muffins. But we'll see how those go. So yeah, we're going to make the dressing first, and then we'll make the potato pancakes, get that in the oven, and then we'll get going on the hollandaise sauce. Okay? So for the dressing, we have 2 tablespoons of cider vinegar, right? We have half a teaspoon or so of mustard powder, and then we have about a 1/4 cup of canola oil. This is going to be a really, really simple vinaigrette. Okay? So, we'll start with a small bowl and a small whisk. And actually, before we start this, there's one other thing we're going to do. Hollandaise sauce is generally made with clarified butter, so we're going to have to clarify our butter first. So I have half a pound of butter here. I'm going to drop it in my pot. I'm going to put it on a medium-low heat. So I'm going to put it on about between 3 and 4. If 6 is medium, it's going to be between 3 and 4. Or I guess 5 is medium. And we're just going to let that melt. So when we clarify the butter, what we're doing is separating the fats and the solids. So you'll see the white stuff rise to it'll be like 2 layers of white stuff. It'll be a layer of milk solids on the top, then the butter fat, and then there will be other milk solids on the bottom, which is mostly salt. There's an easier way to do this, which is actually in the microwave. You just put some butter in a container in the microwave and just melt it. It'll separate. I don't actually own a microwave, so I can't do that. But if you do, feel free to do that. It's quicker than doing it on the stove, and you have to watch it less. But I'm going to do it on the stove. Okay, now, well, I'm melting the butter. It's a half a pound of butter, Donna. We're going to use all the butter we had on the menu. So because we're taking the milk solids out of the butter, it's going to be less than you expect. Like a half pound of butter seems like a lot of butter to make hollandaise sauce. And once we clarified it, it's not going to be that much. Okay? So, while the butter's going, I'm going to add, hi Cassie, I'm going to add my half teaspoon of mustard powder in this bowl, and I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of cider vinegar. Okay? And I'm just going to whisk it up. So again, that's half a teaspoon of mustard powder. You could use Dijon mustard if you wanted, and 2 tablespoons of cider vinegar. And we just want to mix it up so that all the mustard is incorporated into the vinegar. And now I have canola oil, and I mean you guys should know this by now. We're just going to add it slowly, a few drops at a time, and mix it in. Okay, so a few drops at a time. If you have a container like this, you're probably pouring oil out of the jug, but if you put it in a container that doesn't have a lip, hold that over the bowl as you pour it, and that way if any oil runs down the edge, it's going to drip into the bowl as opposed to on your cutting board. And as always, If you're doing this by yourself, you don't have a helper, use a damp towel to hold your bowl in place. I'm just going to use a damp paper towel. So, as always, if you have any questions or if I'm going too fast for you, just ask me to slow down and I will happily take a break so that you can catch up because I want you to cook. Okay, so bowl steady, and now we're just mixing, slowly mixing the oil in. This is probably not going to be like a very thick emulsion because I don't have any honey in here. It's really just the yes, so when he says half a pound of butter is 1 cup, that's true. A full block is a pound of butter, and it's 2 cups. Okay? So we just make our vinaigrettes. Yep. And again, so this isn't going to be like a super crazy vinaigrette. We're just trying to make a quick dressing. If it separates, I'm not too worried about it. And I just dumped a pile of oil in there, so this is probably going to separate. And I know Cassie, my sister, is watching this thinking, why haven't I gotten glass bowls yet? I was looking and I couldn't actually find any I liked. So if anybody has any recommendations, send them to me because I'd love to see a set of nice glass bowls. Okay, so pretty much all my oil is incorporated in here. And I'm just going to add a pinch of salt and a pinch of pepper. Give it a taste. Yeah, very, very simple. Very light vinaigrette. I don't know if you can see that. It's not super thick. It's perfect for what we need it for. So I'm just going to set this back there. Oh, I should also say, this is Dinner with Ben, episode 8, Breakfast for Dinner, brought to you by Ashworks Cutting Boards and T North Carbonated Iced Tea. Thanks, guys. So, put that over there. Give my board a wipe. The butter is melting. It's not fully melted. We don't want it to like boil or anything. We just want it to separate. And be careful not to get any water in there because it can actually hold everything together instead of separating it. Okay, so next step is we're going to make our potato pancakes, but first we're actually going to get a pot of water on so that we have some hot water. Okay, so I'm just going to take a pot, I'm going to fill it about half full, and then get it on the stove. And don't worry about putting salt in it. And I'm going to turn the oven on to 350. It's not going to be on long. I know it's hot, but we need to cook the potato pancakes all the way through, and the way to do that is to pop them in the oven. So 350. Okay, 350. Now, what we're going to do with these is we're going to take 2 potatoes. Mine are fairly small, but that's okay. We're going to grate them on a cheese grater, put them in a bowl. We're going to add a little salt and pepper. We're going to add some chopped parsley and a little bit of lemon zest. I don't think I said lemon zester on... Hello Lauren, thanks for joining us. I don't think I said lemon zester on the equipment list, but just use your cheese grater in the fine part if you can. So, I'm going to use a bowl, cheese graters here, and I'm just going to... I've already washed these. So if you haven't washed your potatoes, you probably haven't. Give them a quick wash, just under cold water, wipe down a paper towel or whatever it is. And then we're just going to use the big side of the cheese grater and just grate the potato. Now we are going to add salt to this, but we're going to do it at the very end because we actually don't want to draw too much moisture out of the potatoes. If we salt it right now, they're just going to sit in a puddle of liquid. We are going to squeeze some of the liquid out, but we don't want to pull out more than we have to. What potato? Wendy asks, what potato do I find works best for this? I prefer russets for it. If you get a potato that's more starchy, like a Yukon Gold or a yellow potato, I find that they just kind of bind up. There's too much liquid in them. I find the russet has just kind of the perfect amount of starch to liquid. That's my opinion. That's what I've always used. But I mean, you can experiment, try a few different ones if you'd like. You kind of want like a neutral potato, is what I say. What?
Let me know if you need help with it.
Oh, my wife is here. She's saying to ask if I need help. I'm good for now. Thank you, though. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us. So I'm just grating these potatoes. You know what? I think I'm only gonna use one. Hello, Steve. If you guys want to use 2 potatoes, go for it. But it's just there's only 3 of us here for dinner, so I think one's gonna be enough. We have the English muffins for carbs, so yeah, we'll only do one. And then you can use the other one for mashed potatoes or to make hash browns or something like that. So I'm going to set that aside. Compost. And I'm just going to give this a quick clean. Check my butter, make sure I'm not burning it. Still some chunks in there. Okay, so I have grated potato, I have a lemon, and I'm just going to take some lemon zest. Now, who keeps sending me angry faces? I hope that that's happening accidentally, because the last 3 videos there's been angry faces, and I want to know who it is. I guess I could look, actually. So, you should know that when we zest lemons, we just want the yellow part, right? Once we get to the white part, or the pith, we have to stop because it's very bitter, and it will cause the whole thing to get bitter, right? So, we're just going to zest about half of this lemon, and it's just going to give us a nice bright flavor in our potato pancakes. Zest, zest, zest. This is not a very good zester. I do have a better one, but it's in my kit, and that's over there. Any questions so far? How's everybody doing? We all good? Good, good, good. Okay, so zest of half a lemon, and we're going to set that aside. Now I need to chop some parsley. We want a fairly decent amount in here, so I'm going to take about a 1/4 cup of unchopped parsley. So if you pack this into a measuring cup, that'd be about a 1/4. And this is curly parsley, but you can use flat leaf if you want. It doesn't really matter. Hi, Lauren. Thanks for coming. I love breakfast for dinner too. So with herbs, all I'm doing is bunching it up, and if you get stems in here, perfectly fine. The stems have just as much flavor as the leaves, and we're chopping it fine enough that it's not going to make a difference. Okay, so just rip the parsley off and get stems in. It's perfectly fine. So I'm just going to ball it up nice and tight. Again, just like everything else, I'm going to keep my fingers curled back. I'm just going to chop and then walk my fingers back carefully. Okay, just like this. So I think I've said this before. This is weird, but I always imagine my hand as a little insect crawling. So it's like I brace with my thumb, and then I pull these fingers back, and then I brace with these fingers, and I move my thumb. So it's like it's just kind of like walking across the board. Does that make sense? So I'm bracing the food with my front fingers, moving my thumb back, bracing the food with my thumb, moving my front fingers back. Okay? And now I'm just going to chop the parsley as small as I can. On my beautiful Ashworks cutting board. Okay. So all I'm doing, this technique is just balancing the knife on the balance point and then finding the counterbalance point and just using the curve of the knife to do the work. I'm not putting any force into this at all. I'm just letting the knife do the work. It's kind of like a seesaw motion. Super easy. Very, very easy on the arms as opposed to this, where You're putting all this force in, it's hard on the wrist, it's hard on the shoulder. Let the knife do the work. Okay, so all this parsley in here. And now we're going to preheat a frying pan on just above medium-high heat, or just above medium heat, not medium-high. I have 5 is medium, so it's just in between 5 and 6. Okay, and now I'm going to add 1 egg in here. 1 egg. Now we're going to add a touch of pepper. We're going to save the salt till the end, and we're just going to mix this up. So you can see it's in there. It's just parsley, potato, a little bit of lemon zest, an egg, and some pepper. Mix her up. Mix it up. Make sure you get all that zest kind of incorporated because it tends to clump up. And that's just going to give it, I think I said, like a nice little bright flavor. Nothing too crazy. And now there's my mixture. Okay? And we'll add the salt now. Just a nice big pinch. Okay, and set this aside. I'm waiting for my pan to heat up, and my butter is melted. No, Wendy, I didn't squeeze out the liquid because these potatoes, like there's liquid in them now because of the egg and because of the salt and everything, but they're really not that wet. And generally, what I do is before I put it in the pan, I'll give it a nice squeeze and then put it in the pan. But these potatoes really aren't that bad, and that's why I prefer, one of the reasons why I prefer russets over other potatoes. Okay, water's boiling. I'm just going to turn it down. We don't need it to boil right now, so I'm just going to turn it down to a simmer. And I'm just going to pour this butter out of here. And I'm just going to let this sit for a few minutes, and it's going to separate, and some of the solids will float to the bottom, some will float to the top, and then we can skim the butter off. Okay? So I'll just put this right here for now. Yeah, so Wendy asked, it depends on the potato, talking about the water content. Absolutely. And it even depends on the time of year. So different times of year, the potatoes have different water contents or different starch contents or different sugar contents. If the potato's cold, it has a higher sugar content than starch content. All these things you have to keep in mind. This time of year, it's hot, it's humid. The potatoes are pretty fresh. There's really not a ton of water in them at this very moment. Okay? Hello, Michelle. Thanks for joining us. Okay, pan is heating up. I'm going to add just a touch of canola oil. You don't need too much in there. And here's what we're going to do. Once we're all there, so my pan needs another minute, what we're going to do is pick up a small handful of the potato mix, give it a little squeeze, and then we're just going to pop it in the pan and give it a little pat, and we're going to leave it. We're not going to move it, we're not going to do anything for about 1.5 to 2 minutes. Okay? So, I would say, I'm going to say that's hot enough. So I'm using a cast iron pan. If you're not using cast iron, that's fine. Donna, I just put canola oil in the pan, but whatever you have, just don't use olive oil for it. So, squeeze the liquid out. You don't have to squeeze it like crazy, just squeeze a little bit of liquid out. Because you can see we have the salt and a whole bunch more liquid here. And now just a little pat. And now another one. We want them all to be about the same size. Okay? Again, a little pat. And I'm going to get about probably 4 out of that one potato. No, I'm sorry, Donna. Donna's iPad is freezing pretty bad. So again, down, just a little pat, and one more out of here. Now, if you do notice that your potatoes have a lot of liquid in them when you're grating them, then just strain them out in like a fine mesh strainer or something, because you don't want a ton of liquid in here because they'll just kind of fall apart. Okay, the last one in there, pat, 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 and we'll get rid of that. Now those are going to take, like I said, about a minute and a half to 2 minutes before we can do anything with them. So in the meantime, I'm going to wash these couple of dishes and get those out of the way, unless anybody has any questions. Okay, so we'll be back in a second. Well, I'll be back, I'll be right here. You know what I mean. And I'm back. Okay. Just going to turn my heat down a little bit because they're getting a little bit too hot. Now I'm going to just give them a little bit of another pat. And my oven is very uneven, so I'm just going to spin my pan a little bit to make sure I'm getting even heat. And those should be just about ready to flip. Hi Jack, thanks for coming. So, flip the ones we put down first, right? Don't flip the last one to go in the pan before the other ones. Beautiful. Okay, so they're flipped. We're just going to let them cook for about a minute, and then I'm going to pop them in the oven. Even if the oven isn't fully preheated, it's fine. It's pretty much there, and they're going to cook through. Okay, so while those are doing their thing, we're going to prep our veg for the salad. Thanks, Wendy. Okay. So, the salad, like I said, is very simple. Carrot, celery, dressing, salad. So, for the carrot, there's a lot of things we can do with it, but we want it as simple as possible. Pop the potatoes in the oven now. And actually, hold on, I'll show you kind of what they look like. That one got a little dark, but that's all right. So see, I hope you can see that. That's really heavy. In the oven. They're going to take about 15 minutes. Hi Barb, thanks for coming. So they're going to take about 15 minutes. In the meantime, by the time they come out, hopefully everything else will be just about ready, or they'll just sit for a few minutes and cool down. So I'm just going to peel my carrot with my trusty speed peeler. I thought that my speed peeler was sharp, and then this weekend I was helping a friend of mine do some events, and I was using his speed peeler, which looked way older than mine, and I cut my fingernail with it. It was so sharp, I couldn't believe it. But that's the good thing about these things, they stay sharp for a very long time. So, with the carrot, all we're going to do is just cut it on a bias as thin as we can. So when we say on a bias, we just mean on an angle, right? Make sure you turn off your burner after you put your pan in the oven. So, I want to cut it super thin. And so again, the trick is hold the knife. I always prefer a grip between my thumb and my index finger, but I have a fairly thin handle. So, between your thumb and your index finger, wrap. Lauren, I got this peeler just at, I think Kitchen. You can buy them at any kitchen supply store. Superstore has a version of it as well. I think Sobeys probably does too. They're good quality peelers. This is just a plastic handle. The blade even pops off so you can clean it. This is what most professional kitchens use. Yeah, I would recommend getting one. So again, thumb and index finger, handle, wrap your fingers around the handle. Not too tight, you just want a nice relaxed grip. Thumb back, remember we're going to kind of crawl our fingers across the board. And now slow-mo is, I'm not lifting the knife off the board like this, it's a rocking motion, okay? Remember, a rocking motion. So again, I'm not chopping either, I'm slicing. Slicing through. And I slice kind of on the front, where when I'm pushing forward. Some people slice when they're coming back. That's completely up to you. You know, find whatever's comfortable for you. But that's generally what I do, is a slice on the forward motion. Okay? And when you get down to the end of the carrot, where it starts rocking around on you and it's hard to hold, just put it flat and slice it. And then flatten it again. You want to be safe, right? Like, I would much rather, hi Em, thanks for coming. I would much rather that you keep your fingertips than everything be the exact same. Right? Okay, carrot in there. Now the celery, I already washed this guy, if you haven't done it not very well. If you haven't washed yours, do that now. And then same thing, we just want to cut it on a bias as thin as we can. And again, fingers back, knife in contact with your hand so that you always know where the blade is. If my hand's way back here, and the blade's here, and something distracts me, and the knife slips and I don't know where it is, good chance it's going to cut me. If my fingers are in contact, doesn't matter. I don't even need to look. You should look. I don't need to, because I know where the knife is in relation to my fingers. Right? And because my hand's kind of curled back and my thumb is always behind my fingers, I don't need to worry about it. Now, with our celery, we're not going to use the leaves and we're not going to use those little bits. And if you notice that there's a joint on your celery stalk, don't really cut above it. That stuff can be pretty bitter. We're just going to stay under it. You can use the rest of it, other than the leaves, for stock. I'm not going to make stock in the next couple of days, so I'm just going to get rid of these. Now, or just throw it on my floor. Okay. So, I'm going to turn my water back up because I want it nice and hot for the next step. And I'm just going to put the celery over the salad. So just like that, I had my greens in the bowl already. I probably should have said that, because I don't think you can see them. And I just put the carrot over the top, then the celery. That's good. So Wendy says you don't want to use the leafy part in your stock. No. It can make it really bitter. You can use the leaves, pretty sure in like a salad or something like that, if you're okay with the bitter flavor. But in a stock, you really don't want to use them. Yeah. Okay. So my butter has sat. And there's not really too much milk solids on top, but you can see everything in the bottom there. Actually, I have a thing just for this. I have one of these things. So I'm just going to pour this in here. Let it set again. And then I'll be able to just easily separate the fats and the milk solids, hopefully, if this thing works. So we melted that down and we have just about a cup, which is perfect. That's pretty set. So we're just going to pour this. I don't think this is going to work. Yeah, this thing isn't going to work. See, gadgets. Guys, I don't like gadgets. So Judy asks why we separate the butter. For a couple of reasons. Gives us a nicer texture in the hollandaise sauce. I'm using salted butter, so we can control the salt content more. And other than that, I don't really know why. It's just kind of how we always do it. You can control the moisture content more because this is just pure fat. So there's, all kinds of other stuff in here that we don't need. But yeah, it's just kind of how we always do it in professional cooking. It's not one of those things I've really asked why too much about, which is weird. I usually ask why. Yeah, so I'm just going to separate the butter from the solids. And so this is another important thing. A lot of people who are lactose intolerant can have clarified butter because this is just milk fat. There's no lactose in it. The lactose is in this white stuff. Also, this has a higher smoke point than butter, and it won't go bad for a very, very long time if you keep it in the fridge. Butter doesn't go bad for a long time either, but clarified butter lasts even longer in the fridge. So we just want to separate as much as we can. And I know this seems tedious, but I promise it's going to be worth it. I promise. And I mean, if you had like a baster or something, you could just sop the clarified butter off the top and leave the other stuff on the bottom. But I don't have that. And if you get a little bit of milk solids in here, not the end of the world. So we just spoon it out, and we want to get as much of the clarified butter as possible. Butter is expensive. We don't want to waste any more than we have to. Right? So what you browned was actually the milk solids, right? So I don't actually think that brown butter would last longer than regular butter. I might be wrong about that. I don't know. The butter, if you pour off the butter fat and get rid of the solids, then yes. But the solids are generally what you're browning most and what's giving it the brown color. Okay, so I think that's about all I'm going to get without getting more solids in here. We're just going to put that aside and set that aside. And so we ended up with about, what do we get? About 2/3 of a cup. So we lost about a third, which isn't that bad. Now, I'm going to take a bowl. I'm going to separate 2 eggs. I guess I'm going to need another bowl. I'm going to separate 2 eggs. So we just want the yolks in here. Yeah, so Wendy says she only kept the brown clarified part of her butter, then that's fine. That'll last for a long time. So when I separate eggs, as a lot of you know, I don't like to pass it back and forth. The shell is too sharp. The risk of breaking the yolk is way too high. So instead, I just break the eggs into the bowl and then scoop the yolk out. As long as your nails aren't sharp and you're not wearing sharp rings or anything like that, it's fine. You just pick the yolk right up. And yeah, it feels weird. It does. But it's efficient. And yeah, I know you can use the bottle trick, but I don't have bottles around. Okay, water's boiling again. I don't need it boiling, so I'm just going to turn that off. I have 2 eggs in here. 2 egg yolks to be specific, and I'm going to add the juice of half a lemon. And I know that most of you know the lemon trick, so I'm just going to roll it, slice it just off center, then we're going to squeeze all the juice out of here. Okay, so we'll reserve this. We might need to add a little bit more later, but we don't want to add too much lemon juice up front, or just, we can't take it away. We can always add more. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to whisk this with my trusty whisk. So, grab a whisk. We have in here 2 egg yolks and our lemon juice. We're just going to mix this up. We want to mix this really well. So, in previous episodes, and even in this one, we've made vinaigrettes. We made Caesar dressing in one of them. It's all the exact same process as what we're about to do. The only difference is that instead of vegetable oil or olive oil, we're using clarified butter, and we're using egg as the binder with the lemon juice. Okay? And we're using heat as opposed to no heat. Other than that, it's the exact same process. We're going to mix our binder with our liquid, the liquid being the lemon juice, and we are going to, my brain just completely melted. We're going to slowly add the fat in and whisk it as we go. Okay? So first what we need to do is cook the egg a little bit. So I'm just going to bring this pot of simmering water. It's steaming. I'm going to bring it over and I'm going to put my eggs over the top. It's important that the bowl doesn't touch the water, and it's important that you watch what you're doing here. Because as the bowl heats up and as you stir, you'll notice that around the edge of the bowl, the egg will start to cake on. So there's 2 options with that. One option is better than the other. You can scrape the bowl down, which is what I recommend. As you go, just constantly be kind of scraping the bowl down. Try not to whisk it too vigorously so it's not spraying all over the place. The other option is that you never scrape it down. Okay? So you let that build up. You don't touch it, because if you touch it, you're going to get scrambled eggs in your hollandaise sauce. It's going to get lumpy and kind of gross. So the idea here is that we want to cook the egg. Essentially, we want to start to coagulate it before we add our butter. It's important that we whisk it, we keep it moving so that it doesn't stick to the bottom and so that it cooks evenly. Okay? So, this is it. This is what we're going to do. We're just going to move it nice and slow. It's going to take a little bit for it to heat up, but then once it does heat up, things are going to happen fairly quickly. And this is not going to be very exciting to watch, but if you're doing this at home, you're going to be very happy with the result, I'm positive. So you don't have to whisk like crazy, you just want to keep it moving, and you want to make sure you're not getting too much on the sides, and you're not scraping the bottom too much. And if you notice, probably in a few minutes it'll happen. Or if it's going to happen, it'll happen in a few minutes, where things start to get a little too hot. Just lift the pot out of the bowl out of the pot. Okay, that's how we regulate the temperature. So what I mean by that is, if you notice your eggs are starting to scramble, take it out of the pot as soon as you notice that. And yes, I know it would be very helpful if I had a glass bowl for this. I'm sorry. Make sure you're scraping down your edges. Now, we use lemon juice for this. It's also very common to do a reduction with vinegar. You can use vinegar with peppercorns, bay leaves, maybe a clove. Reduce that down, strain it, and then use that flavored vinegar as your base instead of the lemon juice. Very common. Adds a really nice flavor to the hollandaise sauce. But lemon juice is definitely kind of the classic way to go and the easiest way to go. So guys, the idea here, again, is that this is the exact same process as mayonnaise. It's the exact same process as the Caesar dressing. It's the exact same process as vinaigrettes, right? Like I said. And that's kind of what I want you to see in this episode, is that hollandaise sauce is something that a lot of people put on a pedestal and say that it's like really complicated and, you know, it's going to break and all this other stuff. But you already know the technique. You've already done it. If you've been following along, you've been following the episodes, you've already done this a bunch of times, right? And if it breaks, there is a way to fix it, which I'll explain later on. I don't want to talk about breaking too much out of fear. Just joking, it's not going to happen. So, mine is starting to get a little foamy. I can't really show you at this moment, but it is starting to foam a little bit. It's starting to coagulate around the edges of the bowl, so make sure you're scraping that down. And that's what we're looking for. Now there's a few different ways you can make hollandaise sauce. This, to me, is the most reliable and hence the safest. Oh, this is pretty much the same way we made the lemon curd too, right? Except there was a lot more lemon and some sugar in there. Donna, I have 2 eggs in the bowl. Just 2 yolks. But I mean, you can make more if you wanted to, right? You could add as many, like if you wanted to make a huge batch of hollandaise sauce, you could add as many eggs as you wanted. And now, so again, mine's starting to foam, or it is foaming, and it started to change color a little bit. And so I know that that means that in probably about 2 minutes, it's going to start to coagulate, it's going to start to thicken up, which is what we're looking for. And be careful of that foam, because that's what's going to stick to the edge of the bowl, and that's what's going to cook. Now at this point, if you wanted to, you could switch to a spatula. Don't throw your whisk out. You could switch to a spatula and just keep everything moving, and just, it's a lot easier to scrape the edges down with a spatula, obviously. So when I drag my spatula across the bottom of the bowl, the egg doesn't immediately cover it. I'm just going to show you, it's going to be easier. So you can see this, when I drag the spatula across the bottom of the bowl, the egg doesn't immediately flow into it, right? So that's how I know it's starting to thicken up. In cooking, we call that OSEC. So we do it with sauces and stuff as well to check to see how thick they are. So we're almost there. We just want it a little bit thicker. And part of the reason why we want it thicker is because the thickness of the egg yolk, it's hard to stir and talk, the thickness of the egg yolk tells us what temperature it is. And when it gets to the right thickness, that means that it's been hot enough to kill the bacteria in it. So it's essentially, what's the word? Pasteurizing it. That's the word I was looking for. So we just stir. And so we know it's done when it doesn't really look like a liquid anymore. It looks almost like a gel. If that makes sense. Again, make sure you scrape down the edges of your bowl. Okay, so this is almost there, and I think that I can probably start adding my butter. So what the butter is going to do is going to help thicken it. Obviously, it's going to flavor it, and it's going to give us more volume, which I'm very, very excited for. Just want to make sure your water is not getting too cold too. Okay, so the foam's pretty much gone. Still a little bit liquidy, but that's alright. I'm going to start adding my butter. Hope you can see that. So, just like with all those vinaigrettes we've made, just like with Caesar dressing, we're just going to start nice and slow with a few drops. Okay? Mix that all in, and then a few more. And then just keep going until you get all of your butter incorporated. Now I'm actually going to take this off the heat, just so it's easier to mix. And the butter's still kind of warm, so that'll help with it as well. And yes, we're going to use all of this butter. And again, make sure that you incorporate all the butter into the eggs before you add any more. Because if you add too much, it's going to overpower the egg yolks and it's going to split. So hopefully you can see how thick that is. It's looking pretty nice, and we're just going to keep adding the rest of it. Now this is not something obviously you want to eat every day. There's a lot of fat in here. But as a treat, super delicious to make. They're super delicious and not overly difficult to make. It takes time, but it's not complicated. Just add that last little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to put this in this container so you can see it. Yeah, so Wendy says 2 egg yolks makes 2/3 of a cup of butter. Yep. 2/3 of a cup of clarified butter. Right. So, you can leave your hollandaise in the bowl. Actually, we should season it first. So, I'm going to season mine with salt and pepper. Now, a lot of chefs and a lot of people will say to use white pepper. I find that white pepper tastes like horse shit, so I don't use it. Literally, that's what I find it tastes like. like what horseshit smells like. I said like what it smells like. Okay, so I'm going to use black pepper. I don't mind if there's black specks in my hollandaise sauce. And just a nice pinch of salt. And mix that all in there. Get a little taste. Ooh, slightly acidic, nice and buttery. Oh, guys, I'm getting excited now. And you can see on my bowl, there's like not really much on it. There's nothing like really stuck on it. That's how you know you did it right. Oh, I almost dropped my hollandaise sauce. So I'm just going to clean up this dish. So there we go. You can see that. You can kind of see the texture of it. So I'm just going to wrap this in plastic wrap, and I'm going to leave it at room temperature. Now the thing about hollandaise sauce is that you can't really save it. So you don't want to make a giant batch of this and put it in your fridge. It's not going to reheat well. It's not really going to be very safe to eat. So just make enough for what you're going to use, and then get rid of the rest. But I'm going to put this pot of water back on the burner. But you can use it on other things. So hollandaise on steak is really good. On fish, it's great, especially salmon. On steak, generally what you would do is you would make that vinegar reduction I was telling you about. So same amount of vinegar, like probably a tablespoon or two of vinegar reduced with bay leaf, maybe a clove and some peppercorns. Or you can add tarragon as well. If you add tarragon and then make this the exact same way, it's called Béarnaise sauce. It's a fancy French sauce, and it goes really, really well on steak. Really well. So there you go. This is actually called a mother sauce in French cooking, and there's probably 20 different sauces you can derive from this. Really interesting. So I'm going to check my potato pancakes, which are probably done. Yeah, a little overdone. I kind of forgot about them. I'm just going to set these aside on a plate. This plate will work. Okay, I'm just going to put these here. I'm going to make sure I don't touch this handle. And I'm going to turn this pan on because I'm going to use it to cook my back bacon. I'm going to bring this to a boil and we'll deal with that. So I just need one more bowl. We use our egg white bowl. And I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of white vinegar in here. Okay. Now I'm going to break. I have 3 people eating, so I'm actually going to break 6 eggs in here. If you only have 2, break 4. Depending on your pot size, probably don't go over 6 eggs. Okay, so what the vinegar is going to do, I'm sure most of you know this already, but what the vinegar is going to do is it's actually going to almost start to cook the egg a little bit so that the whites stay intact, the eggs stay together, so that when we put them in the pot, they're less likely to kind of get everywhere and we'll get less of those spirally kind of weird egg white bits. I can't talk today. I'm having trouble talking. I think it's just because I'm so excited to eat breakfast. Okay, get rid of my eggshells here. And I'm just going to add a touch of oil to my pan because the potato pancakes kind of absorbed it all. And I'm going to add 6 pieces of back bacon. So this is actually pea meal bacon, which is essentially back bacon that has pea meal on it, which is used as a way to preserve it. So it's like cornmeal, but it's ground peas instead. Which, having said that, it sounds obvious, but I didn't know that for a long time. 6. So we're just going to set the eggs aside for a second. And I'm going to get my English muffins going. Now again, these are weird, gluten-free, whole wheat English muffins. I don't know how they're going to be. Hopefully yours are regular, delicious English muffins. I wish that mine were too. And they're kind of already close. Okay, I'm going to get these first two down in the oven. I'm going to turn my pan down a little bit. Jessica says that she once had eggs Benny with smoked salmon, and that's delicious. I love it. And you can easily sub the smoked salmon or the back bacon for smoked salmon. Okay, my water is boiling. My back bacon is going crazy. Flip it. So, water's boiling. We don't want it to be boiling because if it's boiling, it's agitating the eggs too much and they're just going to get all messed up. So we actually want a nice simmer. But once we put the eggs in there, the temperature is going to drop. And if it drops too much, the eggs are just going to sit on the bottom of the pot and get stuck. So it's this weird balance. So we want to start with it boiling, but have it at a point where it's not going to stay there, if that makes sense. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to stir it. Now, I don't know, you probably won't be able to see this. Hopefully you can. But the whites are starting to turn white. They're starting to coagulate, and that's from that vinegar. And these aren't going to taste like vinegar, but that's going to help us cook our eggs better. So, I'm going to stir. I'm going to make a well, kind of like a whirlpool in the center. And I'm going to put the bowl as close to the surface of the water as I can. And then I'm just going to gently pour the eggs out. I'm not going to dump them from up here. I just want to put it as close to the surface as I can and just gently pour the eggs out. I'm going to rinse this bowl really quickly. Now I'm going to put some paper towels in here. And I'm not going to touch the eggs. I'm going to let them go. I'll leave them alone. Not that bacon. Pretty good. One more side. Oh, cool. Wendy says that she's had these before and they're pretty good, so that instills confidence. That makes me feel better. Okay. Let's get a couple of plates out. A little bit more toast on those. Just a touch. What? No. My wife just came out feet red and she's smiling and I'm not sure why.
I don't know why I'm red.
Okay. English muffins. Other one down. So I'm going to put potato pancake on each one of these. I've only got 4, so someone will have 2. Yes, she probably is hungry. Hi, Kat. No worries. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to put a little bit of salad on here. I'm going to use my hands because they're clean. Make sure we get some of the toppings. Again, so this is how, when I was working in Montreal, this is how we would serve something like this, with a nice little salad on the side. Makes for a great breakfast. You don't feel just disgusting and heavy from only eating carbs. And if you hear those voices in the background, that's my wife and her friend talking while I'm filming.
Talking about rocks.
Mm-hmm. So, back bacon down. And if your back bacon curled, put the curl up so the egg will sit in it like a cup. Okay, eggs. We're going to check them. We don't want to get in there and just start like throwing our spoon in there and stirring. We want to gently just come in on the edge. Pick the egg up. And we just, so one just came. They're not all clumped together. And we just want to give it a little wiggle. So this is a little too soft. We'll bring it over so you can have a look. So you can see it wiggling around. A little bit too soft. I'm going to put it back. We want them to be slightly soft. It's really nice when you cut into the eggs Benedict and some yolk comes out. But we don't want them gooey. So, last English muffin. Last of the back bacon. And the eggs aren't going to take much longer. I mean, they're only going to take, in total, probably 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes to cook. So they're pretty much done. So I'm not going to pull the same one out. I'm going to pull a different one out and check that. And yes. So you can see it's still kind of soft, but it's a lot more firm than the last one. So I'm just going to put it in my bowl with a paper towel. I'm going to grab the rest of them. I lost one. That's okay. So the reason we're putting them in a paper towel or on a tea towel is we want to dry them off. If they're wet when we put the hollandaise on, it's just going to ooze off and it's going to be kind of gross. Okay? So, eggs on. And if you have like long tails of white, you can trim them off with a paring knife, but you don't have to. Like this. So, pull that off. And I'm actually going to drop 2 more eggs because I lost 2. I had a few too many eggs in my pot, but that's alright. So, eggs in the bowl. Just a touch of vinegar. And they don't even really need to sit. Just going to give them a little turn in there. Get my well going again. And then eggs. Okay, so those ones are finishing. Let's put this together. So we have our hollandaise sauce. Guys, I'm really excited. So, nice big spoonful of hollandaise sauce. Nice big spoonful of hollandaise sauce on this one. And salad dressing. Just a little bit. You want a nice light salad. Beautiful. And now if you wanted, you could put a little pinch of paprika over here just for some color, but you don't have to. So here we go. Thank you. Yeah, I think it looks delicious too. So eggs Benedict, hollandaise sauce, poached eggs, light green salad, and slightly overcooked potato pancakes. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you did cook along, yeah, a nice chive on top would be good too. If you did cook along, please share some pictures. I'd love to see it. Or if you cook these later, I'd love to see your pictures. Thanks for watching. Like the post, share it around. Next week, we will be making risotto. I'm super excited. So check out next week, same time. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you to my sponsors. I can't talk, I'm sorry. Thank you for my sponsors, Ashworks Cutting Boards and Tea North Carbonated Iced Tea. And thank you to all of you for watching. I gotta eat. Thanks. See you next week.